Hey guys, welcome back to Rossoneri TV. I'm Gio and I'm here for the Trofeo TIM review. AC Milan played against Celta Vigo and against Sassuolo today in this friendly tournament, which is usually done on an yearly basis before the start of the Serie A. Milan went on to win against Celta Vigo after a scoreless draw, 0-0. They went on to win in penalties, and after that, in the second match against Sassuolo, AC Milan actually lost this one, 3 goals to 2. So, what to say about this tournament, guys? I saw a lot of positives, but also a lot of negatives from Milan. Speaking about the team in general, I think we were way better in the attacking sense rather than defensively because if you watch the tournament defensively, we made many mistakes. I mean, it's just not possible to concede 3 goals in the span of about 30 minutes against Sassuolo once you're up to 0. It's absolutely unbelievable because you can't just do such a thing. I understand it's a friendly tournament, but these are things that could very well reoccur in real games, in the games that count in the Serie A. So we have to really improve in the defensive phase of our team because, as I said, there's a game. You could clearly see that there's a game with Montella. The passing is going very well. I like how we're creating plays, we're creating chances. The finishing needs to improve a bit, like we saw in the first game against Celta Vigo, where we got so many chances, but yet we weren't able to find the back of the net. So besides that, I like how the team is progressing, but defensively, we're absolutely horrendous. I was listening to the commentary of the match, and the commentator was saying that Milan conceded like 9 goals in 4 games in this preseason games, and that is absolutely unacceptable once again. Many of you were actually asking me in the comments in these past few days in the news videos if Milan should be getting another center back, and I said we definitely need another center back. However, I'm not sure if Milan will go for one due to the lack of funds in this transfer window. And now seeing this game, I think that Milan understood very well that we're very short with center backs. We only have Romagnoli and Gustavo Gomez, which are probably going to be the starters right now. Paletta, he's good, but he's going to be a backup. You can't see him start in games. Then, of course, Zapata, Rodrigo, these are 2 players that are still out on injury. And then we got Vergara, a guy that, once again, you can clearly see he's not able to yet play at the high levels. Today, he made such an horrendous error, a mistake like that. You can't afford to make mistakes like that, even in preseason games. I mean, what are you thinking as a professional? You're the last man back in the defense, and yet you're still playing around with the ball. Then why are you turning towards your goal in that fashion when you know there's an opponent right on you? It was a piece of cake goal for Sassuolo, who got that win thanks to that goal. But it's not only in this game that I saw Vergara at fault. In many games in this preseason, you could clearly see, if you watch the games, that he made so many mistakes. He's clearly not ready to play at this level. And once again, if he doesn't leave this summer transfer window, I'm expecting he's going to leave in the winter because simply he won't be getting enough playing time. He hasn't convinced Montella at all with these performances. And, you know, if you don't convince the coach in these preseason games, when do you want to convince him? During the games that count? Definitely not. So to me, Vergara was probably one of the worst players in this friendly tournament. I also saw Calabria having quite some difficulties, but yet again, you know, we were pretty short in terms of defenders. A lot of players were playing in different positions that they're not really accustomed to. They're not really used to these positions, as we saw a bit of changes here and there. At one point, we even saw Antonelli or Deschio playing as center backs. So definitely, you know, there was a lot of changes in this tournament, lots of changes in which players don't even have the time to get into that feel of the game, don't even get the time to get into that momentum to even acknowledge something or start their own Some players just don't start their games just at the beginning. They take their time. So some players, they play like 20, 30 minutes. It's just not enough to catch that groove that they need. Now, in terms of performances that I really liked in this tournament, definitely Niang. He scored 2 goals against Sassuolo, but besides the goals, I'm not only looking at that, I'm looking at his will, at his desire to do well. So many times he's mentioned it this summer that he wants to become the best. And clearly, I said that this season it's going to be a very big and important season for Niang. He has a lot of things to prove, not only to Montella, but also to the fans who are believing in him now. I think he's slowly becoming a fan favorite from what I'm seeing in terms of performances that he's doing. This guy is going all out in these games, even the preseason games, to show that he deserves a starting position. Some people might say that he's a bit exaggerating with his movements sometimes a bit selfish not to look for the pass. But personally, I think that Niang is going out there to prove a point to Montella, and I like his attitude, his hard work ethic. That is exactly what we need from players, and Niang showed exactly that today. Other players that I really liked, Bonaventura in that first game did very well. Very good to get away from players, deep players, and I like that. Bonaventura always been a skillful player, and this season is going to be probably the same. Now, getting back to Niang, there's one more thing I forgot to mention about him. He did pick up an injury against Sassuolo, and he was forced to come off. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious because I think that we definitely need him. But other than that, a beautiful performance by Niang. Other than that, I saw a very nice play from Suso on one of Niang's goals. He literally deked 3-4 players, got past them, and served a perfect ball to Niang, which really couldn't make a mistake from a meter out. The midfield was okay, not too bad. Once again, I liked the movement from the team in general, the transition from the midfield to the forwards. Very good passing, very quick passing, accurate. Sometimes, of course, you're going to get those plays in which are absolutely stupid, that they shouldn't even exist. But this is a slow learning process, a process that Montella is trying to imply in this team, and it's going to take a while. But in the little month or so that this team has been together, we have already seen a major improvement in terms of ideas, in terms of mentality that this team will try to approach this upcoming season. So, guys, let me know your comments. I'm going to be reading your comments and questions at the moment regarding the Trofeo team. If you guys didn't have time to watch the matches, and you have a particular question that you would like me to answer, I would gladly do that. So let's start off with Joe Sardina. How are you doing, Joe? Nice to see you on the live stream. Always a big fan. Joe says, Vergara, what are we trying to prove with this guy? He had 3 errors in all 3 games in North America, which all led to goals, and yet we still play this guy. Paleta is okay. If we can only get one player this summer, I think a midfielder is more needed. What do you think after these performances? Well, like you said, Vergara has made so many mistakes. He's still getting the opportunity to prove himself. And I'm thinking that Montella is trying to give him as many chances as he could in these preseason games, in these games that don't really count, to see if he could maybe salvage something from it. But technically, he hasn't done anything to prove Montella that he deserves a starting spot yet as a substitute. That is why I think that Vergara shouldn't stay at the club. I think he should go on loan elsewhere or maybe sell him. He simply hasn't convinced neither me nor the fans, nor Montella. So, I just don't see a place in this team for Vergara. There's another comment saying, I will try to turn Calabria into a left winger. At a certain point, I remember that Calabria made a run in that first game, I believe, where he was on the wing, and he did a nice cut-in where he had a beautiful finish, which missed the net by a bit. But, that might not be a bad idea. However, Will we see that in this Milan team? Personally, I don't think so. I mean, maybe to the last resort, if we really need a left mid or a left winger, Calabria could actually maybe exploit that area. I wouldn't really try him in the Serie A. Maybe into these preseason games, we could see how he plays in that position. But it's definitely something that to consider because he has those attacking qualities, no doubt about it. But would he really benefit from a midfielder role or not? That is the real question. Luke AC Milan says, Gio, I heard about Savio joining AC Milan in January. I didn't hear anything about that. Solomon says, overall, I think our starting lineup is pretty decent, but we definitely need to sell Vergara. He's a nightmare. So I guess a lot of you guys are pretty pissed off with Vergara, and it's explainable because really, let alone the fact that we lost the match, okay? Like, I couldn't care less because it's a preseason game. It's okay. Well, up to a certain point because, I'm still pretty frustrated that we lost in such a way after being up 2-0. And you could clearly see the frustration from Galliani if you were watching the match in the stands. He was telling someone, how's it possible that they scored 3 goals in such a short period of time? I mean, it's just unbelievable, unexplainable to see a professional making these types of mistakes. I don't care if you're 20 years old or 30 years old. You should know better. You're getting paid lots and lots of money to play professional football, and yet you can't make simple decisions. I mean, you can clearly see players in lower divisions make better decisions than that. That is just unexplainable from Vergara. But, enough of him. I mean, we all saw it this preseason. He's made so many mistakes. Milan knows that he's not going to be a reliable defender, and that is why I believe that they will try to get rid of him. Because simply, if you can't perform in these preseason games, then there's probably no chance in hell that you're going to find a starting spot or a place in the team. Let's see some more questions. Laura says, what's your opinion about Bertolacci's performance? I think he played in the second game. I think he only played 20 or 30 minutes. I'm not really sure how much he played. Yeah, he played 30 minutes in that second game. He did all right. Once again, he wasn't he wasn't that light in the game. He wasn't that player that you could really see out of nowhere being that player that's remarkable, that's really standing out. That's what I'm trying to say. He had an all right match like the rest of the midfield. Some players, like I mentioned before, didn't have enough playing time to actually come into the game and say their own say kind of thing. Because, sometimes I see in these preseason games, coming off for 20, 30 minutes, what are you going to try to prove? Yes, we did see Niang pulling 2 goals in 10 minutes, but it's usually not the case with many players. So honestly speaking, I think that Bertolacci had a pretty decent 30 minutes there against Sassuolo, but nothing extraordinary. Sandro says, do you think Milan will win against Freiburg? They have interesting players like Grifo. Once again, this is going to be the last preseason game against Freiburg, and I think that Milan will try to approach that game with a very cautious approach. We are just about 10 days away from the Serie A, from the kickoff of the Serie A, and this is not the time to get any players injured. We saw Niang today risking a lot, risking, I don't know the extent of his injury at the moment, but I think that Niang is going to be all right. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't think Milan's going to try to really go all out in that match. Maybe we could get a win, maybe not. But at this point, I could care less. I'm just focused on the start of the Serie A in 10 days. That's going to be the match I want to win at all costs. I could care less about these preseason games if we win them or not. What matters in these games is rather the performances of individuals rather than the results. So That is what my opinion on that is, really. The killer says Matri and Onda should leave as well. Very good point that you made right there, because I wanted to speak about Matri. There was actually a recent report in the past 30 minutes or so, saying that Sassuolo are very close, if not close, to signing Matri on a 3-year deal. And this obviously has been in the talks in the past few days. So Matri seems that he's going to leave most definitely this summer. If it's not Sassuolo, it's going to be Bologna, one of the two. As for Onda, I mentioned 2 days ago that I really didn't think there was much interest in Onda from various teams, but certain reports were actually saying that there is interest in Onda from certain Bundesliga and Premier League clubs. Of course, Onda is a name that it's not only about the player that we're talking about for Onda, he's also a marketing name. What I mean by that is that, Onda is a fan favorite in Japan, so wherever he moves, chances are that the whole fan base, Japanese fan base that he has, will move along with him. And that is something that many clubs could look at when thinking about bringing in such a player. He's not a bad player, don't get me wrong, but more than the performance type of player, this could be a very good marketing tool for these teams. So Onda could definitely leave as well. Pecco says, I saw passing, keeping possession, but these stupid mistakes are incredible. Better get a gun and shoot at Vergara, Matti, and also Onda. Tell me we are not going to continue like this after preseason. Well, like I said, most of these players are not even going to play in the starting team. I could bet you anything. Obviously, you won't see Matuidi if he's gone. Vergara, I could guarantee you 100% he's not going to be starting. As for Onda, he might start, he might not start. There are players ahead of him at the moment, in my opinion. So I wouldn't worry too much. I think we will have a pretty decent starting lineup at the start of the season. I'm going to read some more questions, guys, before signing off. Yoy says, I saw the same or more from Locatelli than Montolivo. Really, I see that guy Sainty pretty interesting. That will be a good reinforcement. Yes, Sainty is a very good player. He was actually playing with Cesena last season, if I'm not mistaken, and the Sassuolo just got him recently. So definitely, Sainty is a very interesting player to have, but I don't think we're going to get him at all. Till says, Gio, any thoughts on the revive of the Kovacic on loan rumor? Just read it a few hours ago. Personally, I haven't read about this new rumor. Well, it's not a new rumor, but this revival, like you're saying, about the rumor. Once again, Kovacic is a very good option at midfield. Milan is obviously going for a midfielder. At the moment, like I mentioned in the previous video, Milan are going after the Boca Juniors midfielder, Rodrigo Bentancur. So chances are that Milan will be signing him, because there's also been reports that Bentancur, like if we're offering more than 10 million for him, Boca Juniors will pretty much be forced to let him go. And it seems that Juventus don't want to match, and they don't want to exercise their option to actually get him instead of Milan. So there's a very good chance that maybe either tomorrow or the day after, Bentancur will become a Milan player. But we definitely need reinforcements in the midfield at all costs. That's a given. Moanad says, why are Milan finding young players when we don't have good players that can be game changers or give a great impact? Like I said in the previous video, I think this approach from Milan to give in these young players is actually something great. It's great to see that we're making investments in these young players that could have a positive impact in the long term, could do very well at Milan. These are great talents. If you're unfamiliar with these players, Gustavo Gomez, Bentancur, like I mentioned, or even Banjoni, if you take a look at their videos, they clearly say that they're talented players. In the Serie A, it's going to be a different story for them. They probably won't adapt to it right away. But I think it's very interesting that we are finally going after these young South American players. Now, speaking about game changers, we definitely need players as well that already have a sort of experience in professional football in either the Serie A or around Europe to come in and be those players that will change games for you. And the name is obviously Cuadrado. So we'll see what happens. There's still 20 days left in the transfer window. I do believe we are going to make at least 2 or 3 more signings because simply the team is not set yet to compete. We need a reinforcement in the midfield. We need some new additions in the defense. And who knows, if Baca leaves, we might need even a new striker. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to read one more question, guys, before signing off. Sandro says, do you think Niang will be a starter? He has been a beast these games and the last 2 seasons in Genoa and Milan. He gets better every day. I mentioned this so many times this summer, and I think that Niang will have a very important season. He's not going to go out there and score 20 goals by himself, in my opinion, but I think this player will be very influential to Milan. A starting position is undeniable to Niang for what he has shown in this preseason games. Possibly one of the most informed players, if not the most informed players in this preseason so far. So I honestly don't see a reason as to why Niang shouldn't be starting once the season kicks off. And yes, he did have some very positive seasons at Genoa and Milan as well. I think that this player could become something very big. And, you know, he was just so close to either leaving to Leicester or Dortmund a few months ago, but Milan decided to keep him. They decided to bank on him, and they have full faith on this player. So I think that Niang could become a very important player for Milan, and I very well believe that he's going to be an influential and important player for Milan this season. So that's going to wrap up the Trofeo TIM review. Once again, the tournament was won by Celta Vigo. Milan beat Celta Vigo on penalties, but they lost against Sassuolo 3-2 after leading 2 goals scored by Niang in the opening 10 minutes. So thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to Rossoneri TV to stay updated with everything going on at AC Milan on a daily basis. And I'll catch you guys later for another video. This has been Gio signing off. And as always, Forza Milan.